I read the terms on a hotel login page once, all the way to the end, standing in a lobby with a suitcase because check-in was not for another hour. About 4,000 words. 11 minutes. I timed it afterwards because I did not believe the number either. No individual clause in it bothered me. The arithmetic did. I had already agreed to that document or something close enough to it, maybe 20 times that year, in under 2 seconds each time, with my thumb. That tick box is a contract. It is also the only place on a public network where the operator legitimately learns who you are. And it is the second part that nobody notices. I run mobile data lines for a living. SIM cards sitting in modems rented out by the month to businesses that need their traffic leaving from a particular carrier, which means I have written one of these. My own service has an acceptable use page, a retention line, and a paragraph about what gets logged. I wrote them. I can tell you why each clause is there, because I had a reason for each one, and none of the reasons were sinister. First, what this is not. There is a security version of this subject, and I have already done it properly elsewhere. The fake network wearing the venue's name. The sign-in page that belongs to somebody in the car park. The person behind you reading your screen. None of that is in here. For everything that follows, assume the network is exactly who it says it is. Nobody is intercepting anything. The page is genuine, the venue is honest, the equipment is well configured, and the staff are lovely. All of it still happens. That is the point of doing it this way. This is what the arrangement does when nothing goes wrong. And I use hotel Wi-Fi constantly in several countries a year for work. Advice telling you to burn a fortnight of roaming data because of a retention clause was written by somebody who is not paying that bill, and I have very little patience left for it. The handover, here is what a network has on you before you sign in. A device, that is the whole list. Phones randomize the address they show a network now, per network, which broke the old trick of following one handset from one branch of a chain to the next. So the record starts anonymous. Some device arrived at 9:40, asked for these domain names, moved this much data, left at 11. Then you tap through the login page and give it an email address or a room number, and that record has a person on it. Not a stronger clue, a name, one field, typed by you, labeling everything that device did on the way in and everything it does for the rest of the session. That single field is the entire difference between a coffee shop network and a hotel one, and it is invisible because the page looks identical in both places. A cafe with a password chalked on a board gets a device and a browsing list. It has no idea which of the 40 people in the room the device belongs to, and no realistic way to find out. A hotel asks for a room number and a surname. That room number points at a registration card with a passport number on it, because taking that document is a legal requirement in most of the countries you are likely to be standing in. So the connection record stops being a string of letters and numbers and starts reading. The guest in 1114, and the guest in 1114 is a fully identified human being sitting 2 tables over in the same database. An airport sits somewhere in between, and where exactly depends on what the page asked for. An email address is soft. A flight number is not soft at all. A frequent flyer number is a name with a decade of history behind it. The free tier being 45 minutes is part of this as well, and I do not think it is only a cost decision. A session that expires is a session you have to log back into, and the second login is where an airport gets an address you actually check what you are actually agreeing to. 3 families of clause, all of them boring, which is most of why they work. The first is retention. The operator keeps a record of the connection for a stated period, an address, times, volumes, sometimes the names your device looked up. People get loud about this clause, and I think they have picked the least interesting thing on the page. A good deal of it is not even the venue's idea. Plenty of countries require anybody offering public internet access to keep connection logs for a set number of months, and the venue is complying with the rule rather than building a profile. Mine keeps 90 days. The reason is embarrassingly small. When an abuse complaint arrives about traffic that left one of my lines, I have to work out which customer was on it, and 90 days is roughly how long it takes those complaints to reach me. That is the entire motive. A support problem wearing a privacy hat. It still matters. It matters the way a receipt matters. A record exists and somebody can ask for it later. The second is marketing. You gave an address, there is a line saying they may write to it, and underneath that line is a box which is already ticked. That box is the only genuinely optional thing on the entire page. Everything else is accept or do not connect. The box is a real choice, presented as a default, positioned exactly where your eye is not, because your eye is on the button. The third is sharing. Analytics partners, service providers, group companies. This is the one worth 10 seconds because of who you are actually contracting with. The company whose name is not on the door. The venue almost never runs the Wi-Fi. It is a managed service. A specialist company installs the access points, runs the sign-in page, holds the database, and sells the identical setup to a few hundred other venues. So when you tick the box in one hotel, the record lands with a company you have never heard of, and that company holds the same kind of record from every other property on its books. The clause usually says so. Affiliates, processors, partners, written in the flat register these documents are written in. Nobody is hiding anything. It is drafted to be skipped, which is a different thing from being deceptive and works considerably better, but it changes the question you were answering. You were deciding whether you trust this hotel. That was never the decision in front of you, the half nobody mentions. Now the part that made me want to make this one, and it has nothing to do with your internet connection at all. The venue is also counting phones. Access points can see devices that have not connected to anything. Your phone announces itself, looking around for networks it recognizes, and every access point in the building hears that and can count it. That is a footfall system. How many people came in, which zones they stood in, how long they stayed, whether they came back on another day. Shopping centers and terminals run this, and it is genuinely useful to them. It is also on its own close to harmless. The randomized address means each visit is a separate anonymous smear. You cannot chain them together into a person, except in one place. When you sign in to the portal, the system holding the anonymous track and the system holding your name are the same system. Same access points, same vendor, same database, same session. So for that stay, or that day, or that 4-hour layover, the physical track has a name attached to it. Not a browsing list where you walked 40 minutes in one area, 12 in another, a gap of 2 hours, then back through the same zone at 9 at night. People expect a network to know their traffic. Very few expect it to know their route through a building. The route is the better description of a person, and it is the one they did not think they were giving. I want to be careful here because this is the point where privacy writing usually stops being accurate. Most venues are not doing the join. Plenty are only counting bodies to decide how many people to put on a till. But joining the till is a feature of the platform. It is in the sales material. It is a toggle on somebody's dashboard, and the consent for it is the box you did not read, the part I got wrong. For years, I typed a made-up email address into these pages, invented it at the keyboard, felt roughly as clever as that sounds. 2 problems with it, and I only worked out the second one late. The first is that a lot of portals now send a code to the address, so an invented one just fails, and you type your real one 30 seconds later with the failed attempts sitting in the log next to it. The second is that I was defending the wrong field. In a hotel, the email was never the identifier, the room was. I was carefully obscuring the optional field and filling in the mandatory one honestly, because a room number is 3 digits and it does not feel like an identity. It feels like furniture. It is a pointer into the registration system, and the registration system has my passport sitting in it. I did that for about a decade while considering myself reasonably careful about this subject. What I actually do. One email address that exists only for portals, receipts, and delivery notices. Not my real one and not a fake one. A real inbox I never read. That kills the marketing clause outright and costs nothing. Untick the box. It is pre-ticked, it is optional. It is the only lever on the page, and it takes half a second. Forget the network before you leave the building. I argued that at length in the security video, so take the reasoning as read. It lands here for a completely different purpose. A saved network name means your phone walks into every branch of that chain, anywhere on Earth, announcing that it knows this network and would like to rejoin, which is precisely what a footfall system is listening for, and you attached a name to it once, in a lobby, in another country, 18 months ago. On a hotel network, accept that the identity is the room and stop negotiating with yourself about it. The record attaches to your stay. If there is something you would rather not have on the stay record, that is what your own data connection is for. And mobile data is cheap enough that I do not think about this decision anymore, and give the page 10 seconds, not to read 4,000 words, to see whose document it is, and whether the sharing clause names a group of companies instead of the one you are standing in. What makes this different from most of what I cover is that it is a contract you signed, not a leak and not a breach. An offer with terms on it, accepted freely by an adult in exchange for internet access worth about $4, which makes complaining afterwards a fairly weak position and makes reading the thing once, properly in a lobby with 11 minutes to kill, a genuinely useful thing to have done. I am not asking you to repeat it. I did it so the shape of it is in your head the next time your thumb is on the button. More privacy tools tested honestly at theprivacywire.com. Subscribe for privacy advice that is actually practical.